Amazing, huh? Just so inspiring to see Dennis's commitment to customer success. Let's keep it moving and talk about another inspiring presentation. So, uh, you know, there's many companies in technology, but there's a few when you think about them, you're like, those are iconic companies. For me, one of those, especially from my story from the morning, is Microsoft. You know, Microsoft's one of those companies we've all grown up around and with. And Microsoft, as you know, has made this huge transition from their traditional business model to the cloud in a way like almost nobody else has ever done. And I'm really excited to welcome onto the stage a gentleman who's running the customer success transformation. John Jester is the Vice President of Worldwide Customer Success at Microsoft, and he leads a team of cloud solution architects and customer success managers. And their mission is to help Microsoft's enterprise customers realize business value from the Microsoft cloud. Now, as you hear this story, you might be blown away because he's taken a team from 0 to more than 1,600 people, 1,600 in about a year. Now, he says that's just getting started, so there's a lot more to come. And he's going to talk a lot about how he made that transition and also how he thinks about like building a team very quickly, because this is an amazing effort in building a team. So welcome, John Jester. Thank you. Thanks, buddy. Thank you for the Q&A.
All right. Appreciate that warm welcome. I'm John Jester. I'm delighted to have some time with you this afternoon to talk about what Microsoft is doing in customer success. But before I go there, I just want to say it is amazing to be able to come to an event like Pulse, connect with like-minded people. I can use these crazy acronyms, CSMs, CX, CO. You actually know what I'm talking about here. It's amazing. Normally, people think I'm a little nuts when I'm talking to the sales force, et cetera, about that. But I really do think it's amazing we have this community and this event to connect to. And what an incredible accomplishment for Nick and his team pulling this together and hearing about the growth this morning. But also, more seriously, I would like to say I've been incredibly humbled speaking to many of you that have been in this discipline of customer success for years, figuring it out. I've learned from the conversations with you, and I hope to give back to this community. So thank you. But Microsoft, we're in the midst of an incredible transformation ourselves, and that's been led by our CEO, Satya Nadella. He was appointed about 4 years ago, and one of the first things he did is said, we have to take a look at the mission statement of this company, and we have to make sure we're oriented to the future. And we came up with this mission statement that you see here. Empower every person in every organization on the planet to achieve more. And those are some big, bold terms. Every person, every organization on the planet. When we locked on this mission statement, we knew we were going to have to radically remake our approach to engaging customers and working with them if we were going to be able to support this. And we had a lot of legacy to work through. Microsoft had a very linear approach to how we managed our customers. Think about it as we had opportunities come in from marketing. We had pre-sales teams that would engage. They would work with proof of concepts. Then we would send teams in to secure contracts. Those contracts had 3-year commitments in them. And we had an expectation that not only would the customer commit to 3 years in advance, but they would pay us, whether they used, whether they deployed, or whether they saw any value from those software licenses. And as we know, that type of model doesn't serve the future. And you know, this morning, Jeffrey talked about a lot of the drivers here, so I won't cover all the ones on this slide again, but I think the one that really is resonating with me as I talk to customers is digital transformation. And I know that term, you know, gets used over and over and over, and we even have a bit of buzzword bingo where you have to put money in a jar every time you use this term. But I can't tell you how much customers talk to me about it and say, my business, my industry is being radically transformed because of the rise of machine learning, artificial intelligence, all these different business models. And listen, Microsoft, if you want to be a partner of ours and you want to stay with us through this, you have to change your approach. You have to help us transform, not just sell us products. And that led to us really rethinking our engagement approach. How do we move away from this linear model that's all about getting one big contract signed? And how do we move to this model with the customer at the center? And us constantly working around that customer, engaging, helping them adopt, see value, focus more on both the lifetime value that we can generate from a customer, but more importantly, what's the lifetime value we can provide back to a customer as we help them transform and we help them change. And I know you look at this slide, most of you have been in this industry longer than me, and you kind of laugh and say, John, that's a bit of customer success 101, we get that. But that was a powerful change at Microsoft, this concept of we start with the customer. It's about making the customer successful, help them achieve their business outcomes. Out of that, Microsoft will be successful. So we don't start with our own quota retirement plan, we start with making the customer successful. Now, we had a lot of work to be able to do this. Microsoft operates in over 100 countries around the world. And in every country, we had this monolithic enterprise team that sort of owned the enterprise business end to end. We had to radically change that approach. And what we did is restructured our field, and we set it up where there are 3 distinct entities in every subsidiary. And those entities are the account team unit. That's where our account executives sit. They own the end-to-end relationship with the customer, and they own the contract process. Then we have a specialist team unit. This is where our pre-sales engineers sit. This is where our solution sellers sit. They are gold with new business revenue and new customer acquisition. That's their sole mission purpose. And then we created this customer success unit, focused on driving adoption, value realization of our services, and then being the voice of the customer back into Microsoft. So funneling back the feedback of where do our cloud services add value? Where are the gaps? What are the expectations that customers have? We then bring that back to our product groups and our engineering teams. So that's this new organization, and there's a couple principles. They are 3 equal peers. The leader of the ATU, the leader of the STU, the leader of the CSU. Equal peers who all report directly to the country vice president. That principle is important. We can't have sales being a higher priority or reporting higher in the structure than we have customer success, et cetera. Then we had to work very hard on our compensation to make sure that we had the right levers, not just on revenue, but what are we doing to drive adoption? What are we doing to drive customer satisfaction? And we had to put that into the model that we created. And to give you a sense of what this investment looks like around the world, about 30% of our field sits in the ATU, so people oriented around the accounts. 50% sits in the specialist team unit. The reason for that is Microsoft has a very broad portfolio, and we have to have deep specialization to be able to add value to those customer engagements. And then 20% of that field organization sits in the customer success unit. All of these organizations are paid for by Microsoft. So we have a separate organization for professional services, for support. Those are fee-based models. Every resource here is a cost that Microsoft takes on to invest in our customers. So that's the model that we created. And this was a massive reorganization that we undertook, changing the way that we engage with customers. Now, all those things I said, I have to tell you the thing I'm probably the most proud of is the symmetry that we created with the naming of these 3 groups. Every one of them ends with a U, with the unit. So that means when you talk to someone at Microsoft, they're from the CSU, as opposed to most of you who are from the CS organization. So you have to have a little fun with some of the naming and the complexity that goes into this. So let me tell you a little bit more about the details of this customer success unit. So we made this investment, about 1,700 heads now. We're on our way to about 2,000 heads in the next few months. But keep in mind that's growing a $20 billion plus cloud run rate business, right? So a lot of people kind of push me on the size of the organization, the size of the investment that we've made in customer success, but keep in mind the scale of that business. But how we're organized is inside of the customer success unit. We have customer success managers, and I think most of you are probably more familiar with that role. Those individuals are aligned to our modern workplace solution. Think about Office 365, how people work and collaborate, and our business application solution. So that's our CRM offer. Those are SaaS offerings, and the CSMs are focused on engaging with BDMs, adding business value, taking commitments on for customer outcomes. So it's not a deeply technical role. And I'll just tell you a little story about that role. So we did this mad round of hiring. We flew all of these CSMs out to Redmond and trained them, gave them the BDM playbooks. Then we sent them all back into the field, and they met with their account execs and said, hey, you know, I'm the new CSM, I'm part of the new customer success unit. Can you go introduce me to the BDMs in the account so I can get started? And what do you think they heard back? Yeah, exactly. They got, we don't know a lot of BDMs, right? Because Microsoft's legacy is we have relationships with CIOs, with IT, and with purchasing, right? Because we were selling capabilities to IT. In the new world, we're selling business outcomes to BDMs. So another part of the charter of customer success is how do we expand that footprint in our customers? How do we build real BDM relationships? Now, the other role that we have in the customer success unit are cloud solution architects. And they're oriented around two of our other solution areas, data and artificial intelligence, and applications and infrastructure. And these are both components of Azure. So these are IaaS, these are PaaS solutions, and these people are deeply technical. These are individuals that can help a customer move their data center from on-prem to the cloud, help people migrate or build native applications on PaaS in the cloud. So very different profile than the CSM. And if you looked at our organization, about 30% of our customer success headcount is CSMs, about 70% of the organization are CSAs. Now, as we've brought these people in, and as we've spent time educating them, putting them in front of the right customers, we really have started to focus on how can we bring science into this process. And I love the discussion that Nick had this morning on the human-led approach, right? Because customer success in B2B is about relationships. It's about you. It's about your customer. We leverage science to amplify the impact of our people. And when I talk about science, there's a couple things that we're using. So we're taking the telemetry from our cloud services. What modules, what departments, what geos, what are people actively using? We look at data coming in from the sales systems. What opportunities are in the pipeline? We look at customer feedback. We even look at the agenda. When a customer comes in and does an executive briefing with Microsoft, we look at the agenda. What topics are interesting to them? We even look at support cases. All that data is fed into an AI engine that does machine learning on the data. It looks for patterns. And ultimately, we're trying to recommend what's the right next best action for our CSM or our CSA to take with a customer. So potentially we see cloud telemetry that calls out an upsell opportunity. Potentially we see telemetry coming in combined with a service outage that says that customer health is poor now. We need to go engage. We need to make sure that we don't churn that customer. So all these different signals come in and help to guide us. But at the end of the day, the uber strategy here is how do we make customers successful? How do we help them achieve their business outcomes? And how do we amplify the impact of our CSAs and our CSMs with this science? So a big part of our strategy. And then just to give you a little bit of context of this journey that we've been on the last 9 months. So it was July 3rd, 2017 is when we announced that new organizational structure I talked about. and we acknowledged that we were going to create a customer success unit. We had actually kept that completely confidential until that day. Then from July to December, it was all about hiring the right people into the organization, bringing them out, getting them trained, building the right propensity models so that we could map our people to the right customers. That was really our first 6 months. Then in January, we started bringing the science in that I just talked about on the last slide, and that is still nascent. We still have tremendous work to do on getting the science better. As I think about the future, there's a couple things that we have to do. One is keep evolving the science. The second is, right now, our customer success resources are literally just at the top of the enterprise. So our top 15% large enterprise accounts is where all of our resources sit. We have to come up with a model to scale through telesales, to scale through partners, so that we can reach and help more of our customers be successful on our platform. But this is this journey that we've been on for 9 months, and then you can see the next few months ahead. One thing that's helped us along is this quote from our CFO, and I'll just read it for you. Customer success has become an obsession with Microsoft's sprawling cloud business because ultimately, in a consumption-based business, customer success is all that matters. I am amazingly lucky to have a CFO like Amy Hood backing these investments, backing our strategy, helping us transform this company to be customer-centric, to be all about customer outcomes. And with that, this is a tagline that we created. And that tagline is, customer success equals Microsoft success. Again, somewhat simplistic if you've been in this industry for a long time, but for us, this was critically important. Start with the customer. Focus on making them successful. And then one of the things I have to do as a leader at Microsoft, and I wake up every day fired up about this, I have to get everyone in Microsoft to believe this. I have to get that cultural change, that momentum, and build confidence. When we make our customers successful, they achieve their business outcomes. If you're a sales rep, you're going to retire your quota. If you're an engineer, you're going to have a more successful cloud service or product that you built, etc. But building that confidence through customer evidence, critically important. But that's really the heart of the transformation that we're on in changing the culture. Like I said, that's probably the hardest part of this journey. It's not hiring the folks and building the orgs. But with that, thank you for your time. I really look forward to engaging over the next few days. I've learned a ton from you already. I hope to learn more, and I hope to give back as well. So Nick.
Thank you, John. Amazing, amazing story. And so we'll get some chairs in here in a second. But we're so inspired. Actually, honestly, there's a lot of folks out there, including me, who are like, how am I going to hire 10 people this year? Or how am I going to interview 3 people today? And just the scale of what you're dealing with. And I know it's only the start and just a beginning is really inspiring. So I want to talk about a few kind of personal questions that kind of about your story and how it might relate to folks in the audience. So first of all, you get this anointment, you get this opportunity to run customer success. Tell us about that story.
Yeah, you bet. So I'm a long time at Microsoft, so 19 years at Microsoft.
So you started there when you were like 10 or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Roughly,
Is this where you'd be nice to me, Nick,
exactly.
for calling your conference?
Yeah, right.
But so a long time at Microsoft, always in enterprise sales. And we had gone on this journey of, hey, we've got to restructure the company. I think we got to the details of, let's have the 3 groups, the account team unit, the specialist team unit, and the customer success unit. At the time, I was running the worldwide specialist sales group, so the specialist team unit. But we didn't have a CSU leader. And my boss had said, hey, why don't you build this model out, figure out what we should do. So I kind of did that. I'm building the blueprints the whole time, thinking that I'm going to continue to lead the specialist team unit. And I kept getting these hints, hey, who are we going to have run that group? And I'd be like, yeah, I don't know. You better find somebody good. That's going to be difficult. And we finally were doing a big presentation on finalizing the model, and the obvious question came up, hey, this is great. We know who's going to lead the ATU. We know who's going to lead the STU. At least I thought I did. Who's going to lead the CSU? And my name pops out in front of everyone, and I end up sort of on the spot with, hey, this is a great opportunity, isn't it, John? So
in the meeting.
In the meeting.
Wow.
So bit on the spot, and I'd done some of the research, right? So I knew about it from creating the group. But that was definitely a big shift for me, going from the sales background to now customer success.
And that's a great segue, because one of the things I'm really interested in is you come from a sales background, and if, in case you don't know, in Microsoft, the SSP and STU role is really important, very, very important part of growth. What from that sales background did you bring in, and what did you have to learn that's been different as you took on this new job?
Yeah, so I think a couple of things that I brought in, and then a couple of things we had to do. One is, I'm the most passionate about 3 equal peers between how we manage our customers, how we sell new business, and how we do customer success. I think having healthy tension between those groups is great, and clear accountability, right? Cloud growth, consumption, customer being successful, the CSU leader, customer success leader, has to deliver that. New business, logo acquisition, that's got to be the STU leader, the specialist leader. So having that clear line of accountability, super important, and that helps us work together. I looked at all different models, right? I remember when I was first researching this, some models have customer success in services, some models have it completely separate from sales. We wanted that model with 3 groups, equal peers, kind of joined up. Now, we did play with the compensation to make sure everyone had a bit of cross commitments. So even in the STU, for example, the technical people have some consumption commitments, and that lets the CSU tap into them if we need to do a proof of concept, et cetera.
That's great. And anything you had to learn, something that was new for you in this job?
I had to learn a lot of things, Nick.
Yeah.
I would say I came in and I went to another conference, not your conference, and I got a bit confused in that one because it was a bit more of a professional services, and there was a strategy of monetizing customer success by selling professional services, and I was like, well, wait a minute. Like, all our investments in customer success are about how do we grow our cloud business, right? Like, it's cloud growth, that's sort of the monetization that we measure our impact on. So I had to learn about that. You know, the CSM role, we didn't struggle that much with cloud solution architects because Microsoft, like in our DNA, we understood what a technical architect profile was, how to hire. Oh my goodness, the CSM role, we agonized over what's the profile of excellence for a CSM, how do we find the right people in the market, what's the right approach for hiring.
And that's there's a question in the list here and on my mind that we talked about, which is you're going through this amazing process of hiring all these people. First of all, that's a mind-numbing number of times to ask people what their greatest strength is and greatest weakness, and they say they work too hard, right, or whatever, right? But how did you actually think about hiring and also think about learning from this hiring?
Yeah, I think 2 things. First of all, we had a great team. So my efforts, I focused on making sure we had great CSU general managers around the world, and then that empowered us. But systematically, especially for the CSM role, what we actually did is we created a profile of excellence, and then we actually came up with scenarios, so case study scenarios that we made mandatory as part of the interview lip. What I found is we were struggling on the right bar when we just let people ask questions on their own or even gave a list of questions, but more of a management consulting type. Here's the scenario. How do you handle it? How do you do? We educated everyone doing interviews on that, and they used that playbook. And that really helped us zero in on the right folks. Now, I can geek out a little bit on data. So one of the things I did is captured everywhere people came from, so what their background was, what their industry was, which scenarios they were interviewed with, et cetera. And then I'm correlating that to the business outcomes, et cetera. And we're getting ready to do another wave of hiring. So I'm trying to take all that data, all that insights to refine the profile of excellence so we target it. Now, again, hey, it's about people, right? You talked about it this morning. It's all about people. You can't leverage the data and the science too much, but I think it's going to give us some insights to help us
amazing.
Really refine
yeah, maybe
that
next
role.
year you can present on what you learned from all the hiring. It's going to be really interesting.
All the mistakes I made. It'll be a wonderful session.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, no, it seems like you're making good progress.
Yeah.
So one funny anecdote, a lot of companies struggle with this idea that people use the term customer success all over the place in the company. And you had a funny story about when you took the role. And tell us that.
So I had taken the customer success role. And there was an email across Microsoft. It was talking about the whole new field structure and me leading customer success, et cetera. you're feeling pretty good at that point. And I jump onto a conference call, and someone jumps on the call, and they're like, "Hey, I'm VP of Customer Success," and I'm like, no, I'm John. I'm VP of Customer Success. But what it was is inside of each of our product groups, we have a customer experience team, right? So what's the right experience for customers? How do we hone the products, the cloud services, et cetera? And because customer success is it is the cool, in vogue thing to be in, everyone started changing their title to customer success. So it caused some confusion. I had to go back over it. And I haven't been here in this industry as long as you. And the first event was 300 people, right?
Yeah, 300.
So we said,
yeah.
So, probably no one knew what customer success was back then. Now here we are at Microsoft. Everyone's fighting to change their title to customer success because it's the cool place to be.
That's awesome.
That's quite an evolution.
You just heard from Microsoft, customer success is the cool place to be. That's a good one to close on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
All
John.
right. Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.